Throwaway because, obviously. I never thought I'd be this guy posting on Reddit at 2:13 a.m. with my chest feeling like it's caving in, but here we are. I've been married to my wife for just over 7 years. Together for 10. No kids, a dog we both pretend we love equally, he definitely loves me more. Decent jobs, boring but comfortable life. From the outside, we were that couple people pointed to and said, at least they're solid. I believed that too. Hard. The first signs weren't dramatic. No lipstick on collars or mysterious hotel receipts. It was smaller, meaner stuff. She started snapping at me over nothing. Like nothing. I'd load the dishwasher wrong, and suddenly I was incompetent. I'd ask how her day was and she'd sigh like I personally ruined it. She became weirdly protective of her phone, like taking it into the shower protective. Password changed. Face down on the table. Always on silent. I told myself it was stress. Work, hormones, whatever excuse made it easier to sleep at night. I even tried harder. More chores, more compliments, more, hey, you okay? She'd roll her eyes and tell me I was being dramatic. Classic. Looking back, the vibe was off. Not cold exactly, just sharp. Like everything had an edge. And the scariest part? I was already starting to feel lonely before I knew why. Anyway, that's the context. That's me, clueless and still defending her to myself like an idiot. This is where it starts going downhill fast. After a while, the little things stopped being little. She started working late, a lot. Like, a lot. At first it was once a week, then twice, then suddenly it was basically her personality. I'd text, hey, want me to wait up? And she'd reply an hour later with busy or can't talk. No emoji. She used to overuse emojis. That should have been my first red flag, honestly. Then there was the gym phase. She'd always hated the gym. Said it was gross, and full of dudes who stare. Suddenly she needed new leggings, new sports bras, new shoes. She smelled different when she got home too, like not sweat, but some sharp, cologne-adjacent smell that definitely wasn't mine. When I asked about it, she snapped, God, are you tracking my scent now? You're being paranoid. That word. Paranoid. She loved that one. Any question I asked turned into proof that I was the problem. Why do you care who I'm texting? Why are you so insecure? Why can't you just trust me? And the worst part? I started doubting myself. I'd replay conversations in my head, wondering if I really was being clingy or crazy. I Googled marriage slump, like a damn self-help cliché. I convinced myself this was normal, that long-term relationships just get colder. But there were moments, tiny flashes, where my stomach would drop for no clear reason. Like when she laughed at her phone and then immediately locked it when I walked in. Or when she started calling me, dude, instead of my name. Or when she accused me of cheating out of nowhere one night, then refused to explain why she even thought that. Something was wrong. I didn't know what yet, but I could feel it pressing in on me, like the calm before something ugly. Turns out, I wasn't paranoid. I was just early. The actual discovery wasn't cinematic. No dramatic gasp. No slow-motion realization. It was dumb, random and brutal. Her phone buzzed while she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I swear that matters to me, even if it doesn't to you. I was on the couch, half watching some garbage Netflix show, when her phone lit up on the coffee table. Normally, I wouldn't even look. But the screen was facing up, and the preview popped right there. I miss you already. Last night was insane. No name. Just a heart emoji and a flame. My brain short-circuited. I actually laughed at first, like a quick, sharp exhale, because it didn't compute. My first thought was wrong number. My second thought was maybe it's a coworker joke. My third thought was oh no. Then the phone buzzed again. Can't stop thinking about your mouth. Yeah, that'll do it. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I stood up, paced, sat back down, stood again. I could hear the shower running, totally normal, like my life wasn't actively imploding 10 feet away. I shouldn't have unlocked it. I know that. But also, I absolutely did. She changed the password, but Face ID worked. Apparently my face was still trustworthy enough for that. The universe has a sick sense of humor. I didn't even have to dig. The messages were right there. Thread after thread. Inside jokes. Plans. Explicit stuff I still wish I could bleach from my brain. Photos I will never unsee. This wasn't flirting. This wasn't emotional. This was full-blown, ongoing, no remorse cheating. The shower turned off. I remember that sound so clearly. The water stopping felt like a starting gun. I had about 10 seconds to decide who I was going to be next. I put the phone back exactly where it was and sat down. My heart was pounding. My mouth tasted like metal. And the weirdest part, I felt calm. Not peaceful, just empty. Like something in me had already snapped clean in half. She walked out wrapped in a towel, humming, completely unaware that I now knew everything. And that's when things went from quiet to nuclear. She was normal. That's what messed me up the most. She walked past me, still damp, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. Like there wasn't a whole secret life glowing in her pocket. She asked if I'd fed the dog. She complained about the water pressure. She even leaned over and kissed the top of my head, quick and automatic, like muscle memory. I felt sick. I must have looked off because she paused and said, "Why are you being weird?" Not "Are you okay?" Just straight to "You're the problem." On brand. I told her I had a long day. She rolled her eyes and said, "Must be nice," then went to get dressed. I sat there, staring at the wall, replaying the messages in my head like intrusive pop-ups I couldn't close. Your mouth. Last night. Miss you already. At some point she noticed her phone wasn't where she left it. Her tone shifted instantly. Did you touch my phone? Sharp. Defensive. Too fast. I said no. That was my first lie of the night. It felt gross, but I needed time. I needed to hear what she'd say without knowing I knew. Call it morbid curiosity or self-preservation, I don't know. She stared at me for a second, like she was scanning for cracks. Then she shrugged it off and said, "Okay, just asking." But she grabbed it and locked it immediately. Changed the password again. Right in front of me. Didn't even pretend. That's when the anger started creeping in. Slow, hot, and heavy. Not explosive yet, just simmering under my ribs. Because now I wasn't just hurt. I was being actively treated like an idiot. Dinner was silent. She picked at her food, complained it was dry, said she might go out later to clear her head. I nodded along like a ghost. Every word out of her mouth felt rehearsed. Every movement felt fake. I realized something then. She wasn't just cheating. She was comfortable doing it. And I was sitting across from her, memorizing the way this felt, because I knew, absolutely knew, that the calm wasn't going to last. I just didn't know how fast it was about to blow up. She was halfway through putting on her shoes when I finally broke. She said she was meeting a friend. Not a name. Just a friend. She wouldn't look at me when she said it. That was it. That was the sound of the last thread snapping. I said, as evenly as I could. Which one? She froze. Not subtly. Full stop. Hand on the doorknob, body stiff. Then she laughed, this short, fake little laugh, and said, "Why are you interrogating me?" Jesus. I stood up. My legs felt weird, like they weren't fully connected to the rest of me. "Because I know," I said. That got her attention. She turned around slowly, eyes narrowing. Know what? Already defensive. Already angry. Like I'd accused her of stealing instead of blowing up our marriage. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "I saw the messages." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Then she scoffed and said, "Wow. So you went through my phone. That's seriously messed up." There it was. No denial. No confusion. Straight to offense. Straight to my wrongdoing. I asked her who he was. She crossed her arms and said, "It's not what you think." I actually laughed this time. Like a real laugh. I said, "You talked about his mouth." She blinked. Once. Twice. Then her face hardened, like a mask snapping into place. "You're taking things out of context." Out of context. Sure. She started talking fast after that. Too fast. Contradicting herself every other sentence. It was just flirting. Okay, maybe they kissed. Fine, they slept together, but it didn't mean anything. It only happened once. Okay, a few times. But it was because I was emotionally unavailable. Because I was distant. Because she felt lonely. Every excuse was a dodge. Every explanation somehow circled back to me. At one point she said, "If you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have needed this." That's when the calm completely evaporated. I felt something ugly rise up in my chest. Not violence, not screaming. Just this raw, animal realization that the person in front of me wasn't sorry. She was just annoyed she got caught. And I knew, standing there in our living room with her halfway out the door, that whatever version of my life I thought I had, it was already over. Once she realized the denial angle wasn't working, she pivoted. Hard. Suddenly she was crying. Like, full-on tears, mascara threatening to run, voice shaking. It was whiplash. 5 minutes earlier I was the villain for invading her privacy, and now she was the wounded one. She kept saying my name like that was supposed to rewind time. "I didn't plan for this," she said. "It just happened," she said. "I was going to tell you," she said. All lies. Sloppy ones. I asked her how long it had been going on. She said, "A month." I asked why the messages went back almost a year. She said, "Okay, a few months." I asked about the photos with different seasons in the background. She snapped, "Why are you analyzing everything like a psycho?" There it was again. Attack mode. She claimed he meant nothing, then immediately defended him when I called him a scumbag. She said it was purely physical, then accused me of never meeting her emotional needs. She said she felt trapped in the marriage, then asked if we could just reset and move forward. At one point, this one really stuck with me. She said, "You're acting like I murdered someone. It's just sex. Just sex." Like I hadn't built my entire adult life around her. Like trust was some optional add-on. My hands were clenched so tight my nails left marks in my palms. I wasn't yelling. That almost seemed to frustrate her more. She wanted a fight. She wanted chaos she could use as proof that this was why she cheated. I asked her one last question. "If I hadn't seen the messages, where would you be going right now?" She didn't answer. She looked at the floor. Then at the door. Then back at me. And in that pause, maybe 3 seconds, maybe a lifetime, I got my real answer. She grabbed her bag and said she needed space. Not sorry. Not remorseful. Just inconvenienced. The door slammed behind her. And I was left alone in the house, surrounded by furniture we picked out together, realizing the confrontation didn't give me closure. It just gave me confirmation. The silence after she left was deafening. Not poetic silence. Not peaceful. The kind where every tiny sound feels amplified and wrong. The fridge hummed like it was judging me. The dog paced between the door and me, confused, nails clicking on the floor. I sat on the couch exactly where I'd been when her phone buzzed earlier, like if I moved, something worse might happen. I checked the clock. 10 minutes had passed. It felt like an hour. That's when the physical stuff hit. My hands started shaking again, but this time harder. I got nauseous. Had to run to the bathroom and dry heave over the sink like my body was trying to reject the last decade of my life. I remember thinking, this is so dramatic, and then immediately thinking, no, actually, this is pretty on brand. I texted her. I hate admitting that. Just, where are you going? No response. I waited. 5 minutes. 10. I checked my phone like a teenager waiting on a crush. Nothing. Then, like an idiot, I opened her location sharing. She turned it off. That one small, deliberate choice hurt more than I expected. It felt surgical. Like she knew exactly where to cut. The anger came back then. Not explosive, not loud, just this cold, settling rage. I started walking through the house, noticing things I hadn't before. Her shoes by the door she was supposed to walk back through. Her half-finished mug on the counter. A picture of us from 2 summers ago, arms around each other, both smiling like we didn't have a clue. I knocked it face down. That scared me. Not because it was violent, it wasn't, but because it was the first time I'd physically altered anything in our shared space. Like I was erasing her in tiny petty ways just to see if I could. At some point, my phone buzzed. For half a second, my heart jumped. Then it sank. It wasn't her. It was a random group chat meme I didn't even remember being part of. Life, apparently, was continuing without checking if I was okay with that. I sat back down, stared at the blank TV screen, and thought, this is real. This is actually happening. And for the first time since I found the messages, I didn't feel calm or angry. I felt completely, devastatingly alone. Around midnight, my phone finally rang. Not a text. A call. From her. I answered immediately, which I hate myself for, and the first thing I heard was background noise. Music, laughter, clinking glasses. Not subtle. She wasn't alone, and she definitely wasn't getting space. "Why are you calling me?" she asked, like I was the one interrupting something. I said her name. Just her name. I didn't trust myself with more than that. She sighed dramatically and said, "I just wanted you to calm down. You were being really intense earlier." Really intense. Right. That was her takeaway. I asked her if she was with him. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, you're obsessed." "No, I'm with friends. You don't get to interrogate me." I asked her where she was. She said, "Out." I asked her if she planned on coming home. Long pause. Then, "I don't know. I can't deal with this right now." This. Not what she did. Just the consequences. I told her I needed honesty. Just once. I said, "Please don't lie to me again." She snapped back instantly. "I'm not lying. You're just looking for reasons to be hurt." Gaslighting. Clean, textbook, almost impressive in its confidence. Then, "This part still feels unreal," she said. "You know, if you keep pushing me like this, you're going to make me not want to come back at all." Like I was negotiating. Like she was doing me a favor by staying faithful after cheating. Something in me finally cracked then. I didn't yell. I didn't insult her. I just said, very quietly, "You already left." She went silent. Then said, "You're being dramatic," and hung up. That was it. No goodbye. No reassurance. No apology. I stared at my phone for a long time after that, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. At some point, I realized my hands had stopped shaking. I went to bed alone, on my side of the mattress, staring at the ceiling. Every few minutes my brain would replay some random memory. Our wedding, a stupid fight over paint colors, the way she used to fall asleep on my chest. None of it felt fake. That was the worst part. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, counting hours, realizing that whatever tomorrow looked like, it wasn't going to look like my old life. And I had no idea how fast things were about to unravel next. She didn't come home. I knew that before I even opened my eyes. Her side of the bed was untouched, too neat, pillows still fluffed the way she pretends not to care about. The house felt wrong in daylight, like the walls had seen everything and were disappointed in me for still being there. I checked my phone. No texts. No missed calls. Nothing. Just a scene on the message I'd sent at 1:47 a.m. asking if she was safe. Seen. Not answered. That one stung more than I expected. It was such a small cruelty, but it landed clean. I dragged myself into the kitchen and nearly tripped over it. Her overnight bag was gone. Not packed in a rush. Deliberate. The good charger missing. The nice toiletries. She'd planned not to come back, at least for the night. Maybe longer. I sat at the table with cold coffee and started doing math I didn't want to do. Where she could be. Whose place she'd feel comfortable staying at. Whether I'd met him. Whether he'd ever been in my house. That thought made my stomach turn. Around 9 a.m., she finally texted. We need to talk later. I stayed with a friend. Don't blow this up. Don't blow this up. Like it was a small kitchen fire and not a controlled demolition. I replied, are you with him? 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Why does it matter? That answer told me everything. I went to work anyway because apparently I'm a functional adult who can answer emails while his marriage disintegrates. I smiled at co-workers. I nodded in meetings. I felt like I was watching myself from a few feet behind, like this was happening to someone else who just happened to have my face. At lunch, she sent another message. You're not innocent in this, you know. There it was. The narrative shift. The groundwork for rewriting history. I realized then that this wasn't going to be a clean break or a dramatic apology. This was going to be messy, defensive, mean, full of revisionist nonsense where she was the victim and I was the obstacle. And for the first time, I wasn't just hurt. I was tired. Tired of guessing. Tired of chasing half-truths. Tired of carrying the emotional weight for both of us while she kept dropping it and walking away. I didn't know what my decision was yet. But I knew I was done playing along. She came back that evening like nothing had happened. Not sheepish. Not nervous. Annoyed. Like I'd inconvenienced her by discovering her affair, and now she had to deal with the fallout. She walked in, dropped her bag, and immediately said, "Can we not do this right now? I'm exhausted." I said, "No, just that. One word." It felt powerful in a quiet, unfamiliar way. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. "You're being really controlling." Controlling. Right. Because wanting honesty from your spouse is apparently a red flag now. We sat at opposite ends of the couch like strangers waiting for a mediator. I asked her, again, if she was seeing him. She sighed and said, "I told you, it's complicated." Then, without missing a beat, added, "But it's not serious." I reminded her she'd been lying for months. She said, "I wasn't lying. I just didn't tell you." I said that's the same thing. She said, "Not really." She tried to turn it into a philosophical debate. Semantics. Technicalities. Anything to avoid the core truth. She betrayed me and felt justified doing it. Then she dropped the bomb she'd clearly been saving. "I think we've grown apart for a long time. I've felt unhappy for years. Years." Funny how I'd never heard about that until now. Funny how her solution to years of unhappiness was sneaking around and blaming me after the fact. I asked why she never said anything. She said, "You're not exactly easy to talk to." That one hurt more than I expected. Because I replayed every time I'd checked in, every attempt I'd made to connect, every time she'd shut me down. And somehow, in her version of events, my patience became neglect. At some point she said, "I didn't mean to hurt you." I looked at her and realized something terrifyingly clear. She believed that. She genuinely thought intent mattered more than impact. That as long as she didn't mean to destroy me, the damage was negotiable. I told her I needed space. She smirked and said, "So now you're the one walking away?" That smirk. That tiny, satisfied curl of her mouth. Like she'd flipped the script and won something. I went to the spare room and closed the door. And lying there in the dark, staring at a ceiling that wasn't ours, I felt the balance shift. The shock was fading. The fog was lifting. What was left was clarity. And it was pointing me somewhere I'd never planned to go. I didn't sleep much in the spare room. Not because I was crying or spiraling, I'd kind of burned through that already, but because my brain wouldn't shut up. It kept lining things up, replaying moments with new context. Like a detective who finally knows who did it and now can't stop seeing the clues everywhere. The gym phase. The late nights. The random accusations. The way she'd flinch when I touched her sometimes, like I was interrupting something else she'd rather be thinking about. None of it felt confusing anymore. It was almost insulting how obvious it all was in hindsight. The next morning, she acted pleasant. That was new. She asked if I wanted coffee. She told me I looked tired. She even made a joke about the dog hogging the bed like she hadn't slept somewhere else the night before. It was like she decided we were in the awkward but fixable stage without consulting me. I realized then that she wasn't processing this the same way I was. For me, this was a collapse. For her, it was a transition. She'd already emotionally left. I was just catching up. That hurt. But it also did something unexpected. It loosened my grip. I stopped trying to get answers out of her. I stopped correcting her version of events. When she said, "We both messed up," I didn't argue. When she said, "Relationships are complicated," I just nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I didn't need her to understand anymore. That scared her. You could see it in the way she watched me, like she was waiting for another outburst that never came. She asked, "Why are you being so calm?" Like calm was suspicious now. I told her the truth. I'm just tired. And I was. Tired of pain shopping. Tired of hoping she'd suddenly become someone else. Tired of negotiating my own dignity. Acceptance doesn't feel noble at first. It feels hollow. It feels like giving up something you were taught never to quit on. But underneath that hollowness, there was something solid starting to form. Resolve. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew, with a certainty that surprised me, that I wasn't going to beg. And once that decision settled in, the fear started to lose its edge. The turning point wasn't dramatic. No yelling. No ultimatum delivered with shaking hands. It happened over a stupid detail. She mentioned casually that she might be staying out again that night. Said it like she was talking about picking up milk. I asked where. She shrugged. I don't know yet. Something in me finally clicked into place. I said, "You can't do that." She blinked. "Can't do what?" "Come and go like this," I said. "Sleep somewhere else. Act married when it's convenient and single when it's not." She laughed. Not kindly. "You don't get to control me." And there it was. The final misunderstanding, laid bare. She thought this was about control. About rules. About me trying to keep her. I said very clearly, "This isn't control. This is a boundary." She scoffed. "Wow. You've really been watching therapy TikToks, huh?" I stood up. My hands were steady. My voice didn't crack. That surprised both of us. "If you're still seeing him, you don't live here." Her smile vanished. "You can't kick me out." "I'm not," I said. "I'm telling you what I will and won't live with." She tried to backpedal then. Said I was overreacting. Said I was rushing things. Said she needed time to figure out her feelings. She even tried to soften her tone, reached for my arm like we were still on the same team. I stepped back. That was the line. Physical and emotional. The first one I'd drawn since this all started. She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. Like I'd broken character. And maybe I had. I wasn't the accommodating, patient version of me anymore. I wasn't the guy who absorbed blame just to keep the peace. She grabbed her bag and said, "Fine. I'll go." But don't act like this isn't on you too. I didn't respond. The door closed again. Louder this time. And instead of collapsing, I sat down and felt something unfamiliar settle in my chest. Not relief. Not happiness. But self-respect. And once that showed up, there was no way I was going to pretend it didn't matter. The house felt different once she was gone for real. Not empty. Lighter. Like the air had been stale for years and someone finally cracked a window. I noticed stupid things right away. The volume of the TV stayed where I set it, the thermostat didn't get mysteriously changed, nothing felt tense just for existing. She didn't text that night. Or the next morning. That scared me more than I want to admit. I kept waiting for the emotional whiplash, for her to come crashing back with apologies or rage or some dramatic declaration that now she understood. Instead, there was just nothing. Silence so clean it almost felt intentional. Like she'd already moved on to the next chapter and forgot to bookmark this one. I started telling people. Carefully. One friend at first. Then another. Saying the words out loud, she cheated on me, felt surreal, like I was accusing someone else's wife. Every time someone reacted with anger on my behalf, it startled me. I hadn't realized how much I'd been minimizing it just to survive. That afternoon, she finally texted. We should be civil about this. Civil. Like we were negotiating a fence line, not dismantling a marriage. I replied, we can talk logistics. Nothing else. She left me on read. And for the first time since this all started, that didn't hurt. I took the dog for a long walk. I made a real dinner instead of picking at snacks. I slept in the middle of the bed without feeling guilty or sad about it. The grief was still there, heavy, waiting, but it wasn't running the show anymore. I realized something important that night. Closure doesn't come from the person who hurt you. It comes from deciding you're done letting them explain it away. I wasn't healed. Not even close. But I was finally facing forward. And that made all the difference. The practical stuff hit next. The unromantic, administrative hangover of a broken marriage. She came by while I was at work to grab more things. I know because I got a notification from the doorcam and watched it like some detached third party. She moved fast. Efficient. No lingering. She didn't look sad, just focused. Like this was a task she wanted done before it got awkward. Later, she texted me a list. Bills. The lease. The dog. The dog part turned into a fight immediately. She said, he's more attached to me. I almost laughed. This was the same woman who forgot to feed him if I didn't remind her. I said, we'll figure it out through lawyers if we have to. That escalated things. Suddenly, I was threatening her. Suddenly, I was making this ugly. She accused me of being vindictive. Of punishing her for being honest about her needs. At one point she actually said, you're acting like I'm a monster. I didn't reply right away. When I finally did, all I said was, actions have consequences. She didn't like that. She sent 3 long messages in a row, revisionist history, selective memories, little jabs wrapped in pseudo-self-awareness. She apologized, sort of, but always with a qualifier. I'm sorry you feel hurt. I'm sorry this ended badly. Never I'm sorry I did this to you. Reading them, I felt something click into place. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even that sad in that moment. I was disappointed. Not in the marriage. Honestly, that had been cracked for a while. But in her. In the way she chose the easiest exit every time. In how quickly love turned into blame the second it required accountability. I stopped responding. That felt like the final quiet act of the whole thing. Not dramatic. Not petty. Just done. I started looking at apartments that night. Small ones. Clean ones. Places that would be mine, without history baked into the walls. For the first time since the beginning, the future didn't feel like a void. It felt undefined. And that was okay. I moved out a month later. Not in a dramatic, storming off way. Just boxes, a borrowed truck, and a quiet, mutual understanding that whatever this had been, it was done. The paperwork took longer than the emotions, which surprised me. By the time anything was official, I'd already grieved the marriage I thought I had. Here's the thing I didn't expect. I don't miss her. I miss the version of her I believed in. The story I told myself about us. The future that felt safe because it was familiar. But the actual person. The one who lied easily, blamed reflexively, and treated my trust like an inconvenience? No. That version cured me of nostalgia real fast. If you're reading this because you suspect something's wrong, here's my unsolicited Reddit guy advice. Trust the pattern, not the excuses. Anyone can explain one red flag. They can't explain a whole parade. Pay attention to how they act when caught. Cheating hurts, but the real damage comes from how someone handles accountability. You don't need their confession to leave. You don't need closure from the person who broke you. Boundaries aren't punishments. They're self-respect with teeth. I used to think being a good partner meant being endlessly patient. Turns out, it also means knowing when patience becomes self-betrayal. I'm not over it in a movie montage way. Some days still hit weird. Songs. Smells. Random Tuesday nights. But I wake up without dread now. I make decisions without bracing for conflict. I don't feel crazy for asking normal questions. And that's how I know I made the right call. If you're in the middle of something like this, I'm sorry. Truly. It's brutal, and it messes with your head in ways people don't talk about enough. But I promise you this, life on the other side of dishonesty is quieter. And that quiet. It's worth everything.